Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our e-signature workflow optimization webinar. I am Bill Bradford, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the current president-elect for the ARMA International Board of Directors. I noticed that there are a number of non-ARMA members on the call today, so wanted to give you just a little bit of maybe information or statement about ARMA. If you look at I look at really our vision and our mission statements, and our vision statement is to be the driving force that enables organizations to harness the strategic power of information, and our mission statement is to empower the community of information professionals to advance their careers, their organizations, and the profession. And this webinar today really speaks to both of those statements. We're really hoping that you leave the webinar today with a lot of good information that can help you in your profession and position currently and with your organization. Also wanted to remind everybody, or maybe if you, again, didn't know, that we have our ARMA InfoCon 2019 that is occurring this October, October 21st through the 23rd in Nashville, Tennessee at the Gaylord Opryland Resort. So we hope to see you there, and for all the non-ARMA members on the call, take a few minutes and go out to the ARMA website and check out all the information we've got on our ARMA InfoCon 2019. We'd like to thank OneSpan for bringing this webinar to our community today. We would also like to thank OneSpan for their commitment to ARMA and investing in our profession. We hope when you consider a new partner to do business with, you support the business partners that support you and invest in our profession. OneSpan brings you secure e-signature solutions that even the most regulated companies can use to drive digital interactions with their customers. Today, Dilani Silva and Patrick Albert will give you the tools to build and adapt your e-signature workflows across your organization. Dilani Silva is a product marketing manager at OneSpan. She brings 5 years of IT marketing experience to her role. Dilani manages and executes the go-to-market strategy, positioning, messaging, and sales enablement for OneSpan's e-signature solution, OneSpan Sign. Patrick Albert has more than 15 years of experience in business process automation and is now with OneSpan as a senior business architect. In his position, Patrick plays a strategic role helping customers identify and prioritize target applications, document technical requirements, and map out a strategic enterprise e-signature plan. Through his involvement in dozens of engagements, Patrick has gained a wealth of e-signature best practices and lessons learned. And with that, I will hand it over to Dilani and Patrick.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to first thank everyone for joining us today to talk a little bit more about electronic signatures, and thank you for that great intro, Bill. So Patrick and I have an exciting webinar planned where we'll go through some of the most common and frequently asked questions about e-signature technology and adoption and how your organization can get started with e-signatures. So now, before we dive into the content, we want to start things off with a quick poll to get a feel of where the audience stands on their experience with e-signatures. So the question should appear on your screen. There, I see it right there. So the question is, what is your level of experience with e-signatures? So you can go ahead and select one response from that pop-up that you see over there. And the options are, I'm a newbie and just starting to learn about e-signatures. I've tried e-signatures before, but still a rookie. I'm a pro. I've been using e-signatures for years. So I'll give you folks a few moments to respond, and we'll take a look at the results shortly. So let's give it a little bit of time. All right, I think it's safe to maybe close the poll and maybe push out the results just to see where we landed with everyone's answers. Oh, wow, okay, so it's a really good mix of results. So we have a couple of rookies, some people who are newbies to electronic signatures, and a couple of pros on the line as well. So, I mean, I think that's what I was expecting from everyone's results today. And today's webinar will speak directly to the answers that we just saw in the poll results. But before I dive into today's presentation, I just wanted to give everyone a little background on OneSpan. So believe it or not, e-signatures have actually been around for 25 years. And in fact, OneSpan, also known as Solanas Technology at the time, really pioneered this market. And today we process more documents in the regulated space, such as banking, insurance, government, and healthcare than any other e-signature provider in the market. We are the e-signature solution that is white labeled behind some of the world's most trusted and security conscious organizations. And you'll see some of our marquee clients on the slide over here. We have US Bank, the US Army, BMW Financial, IBM, and Wells Fargo as clients, just to name a few. And what's really been exciting for the last few years for us is that we've gone global. We've launched instances of OneSpan Sign in multiple data centers around the world to help meet data residency requirements for our customers who are increasingly moving to the cloud, but also want to ensure that data stays in their region or country. Now, OneSpan is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ with a strong focus in digital security and e-signature solutions. Our company is growing rapidly and has a strong financial backing and also has a global presence. All right, so that's my spiel about OneSpan. So at this time, I'm just going to dive right into the content that I want to share with you all. So everyone is talking about digital transformation, and it seems to be a hot buzzword today, and it really started more than 30 years ago. Now, back then, organizations were focused on becoming the paperless office, and this involved scanning and digitizing paper documents to free up offices from stacks and stacks of paper. Now, for the enterprise, the focus was on achieving back office efficiency and giving time back to employees. Now, unfortunately, most of these processes dropped to paper whenever a signature or approval was required. And from a customer experience point of view, if you think of it from their lens, the primary channel was limited to a physical one. So, for example, clients would have to go to a point of sale location or even a bank branch to complete documents. Now, in the 2000s, the digital movement started. Now, everything was about achieving end-to-end digitization. And the good news was that critical e-sign laws around the world, such as e-sign Act and the EU directive, began to pass in order to support enterprise digitization efforts. The internet also unlocked the online channel, which gained in popularity because consumers now were given more choice with respect to how, when, and where they transacted. And moving to the 2010s and beyond, the surge in mobile use and self-service expectations from consumers has led to the birth of the omni-channel era. And this all stems from customer experience being the #1 key driver for digital transformation today. And these heightened expectations are coming from your employees, your partners, and your customers in every channel and in every part of the world. So if we look at this from a different lens, the focus 10, 20, 30 years ago was on the back office. Now, organizations were concentrated on digitizing the processing and storage of documents and data at the tail end of the workflow, like you see on the slide over here. But today, with Digital Transformation 2.0, it's all about unlocking the potential of the front office, which is directly linked to the customer experience. Now, organizations like yours are therefore putting their digital transformation investments upstream in the process. So moving from right to left over here to focus on front office and customer experience related challenges around identity verification and generating and completing digital transactions, which then logically flow into your downstream back office systems like an ECM or document management system. Now, in today's presentation, we'll talk about how OneSpan can be your security and e-signature partner to help you unlock the full potential of the front office in a secure manner, but one that also ensures that you achieve the highest adoption rates possible, regardless of the geography, channel, or device of the consumer. And we can help you make bold advances in your digital transformation and exceed customer expectations, all while ensuring the highest level of security and compliance. So I'm happy to see that we have a cross-section of individuals and organizations that are attending today's webcast. We have attendees from banks, credit unions, government agencies, insurance, manufacturing, as well as a whole slew of other industries. So let's take a look at some of the top e-signature use cases that we at OneSpan are seeing, both in the commercial space, but as well as in government organizations as well. So if you look at banks, insurance companies, and other financial service providers, many have moved their account opening processes online. And if you're like me, you've probably visited your financial institutions one too many times to sign documents in branch. So instead of having to go into a branch and fill out paperwork or wait for documents in the mail, financial services institutions are now enabling their customers to complete and e-sign their applications completely online without having to step foot into a branch. So if we look at the healthcare, pharma, and other regulated industries, we're seeing a lot of adoption for use cases related to patient waivers and consent forms, as well as for the procurement of narcotics and other controlled substances. And across all industries, we see many companies and government agencies alike digitize their contracting and procurement processes with the help of e-signatures. And this also includes internal purchase approvals, as well as POs and NDAs with external parties. And we're also seeing organizations deploy e-signatures as an enterprise solution to gain efficiencies and really improve the overall customer experience, specifically once they've been successful in a handful of use cases. Once the initial set of use cases are tested and proven, we often see organizations expand their usage across multiple lines of business and departments. So we've done our homework, and we've spoken to many companies and government organizations of different sizes and industries across many use cases. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to share what they've told us in terms of their key business drivers for moving to e-signatures. So the first is that they want to make it easier for people to do business with them. So enabling employees, partners, and customers to sign anywhere, anytime, and on any device improves that overall experience with the organization. They also want to improve their business productivity and efficiency. So moving to an all-digital process with e-signatures reduces the time required to manually process paper-based documents. And this also eliminates manual processing errors by automating and enforcing business rules throughout the workflow, which in turn eliminates the cost of handling documents and correcting errors. And lastly, organizations want to strengthen their compliance and legal position. Now, as you know, regulatory requirements have probably gotten stricter over time in many of your industries, and organizations want to be able to capture everything in the case of an audit or legal case. They need detailed audit trails of how and when those transactions took place, and we'll show you how we go above and beyond what other vendors in the market do in this particular area. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, where I'll talk a little bit more about e-signature best practices. So different groups in your organizations will have different use cases and needs for e-signatures. And we've architected OneSpan Sign in a way to give you the most options for getting e-signatures in front of your customers, partners, and employees. So let's take a look at the options that we provide to you. So first and foremost is deployment options. OneSpan Sign is unique in the marketplace because our solution can be deployed on premises in your own data center so that you have full control over the environment, or even on a private cloud or public cloud through any one of our multiple data centers around the world. Now, ultimately, it's really up to your organization to decide based on your business, compliance, and IT requirements, but having that flexibility to select a deployment method can help to minimize risk. And I'll touch upon a bit more about deployment options in detail later on in the presentation. Next up is implementation options. So we offer you multiple ways to consume OneSpan Sign, and this will largely depend on your e-signature use case, whether it's an embedded or non-embedded application. So for example, you can embed OneSpan Sign into your own web or mobile application using our open API and SDKs, or even leverage our web service or mobile app to get documents out for signature. And in addition, you can use OneSpan Sign through third-party applications like Salesforce and SharePoint that plug directly into these applications. Next is service channels. So your customers touch you in multiple ways. They come to you using your web or online channel. They can call into a call center. They can meet with one of your advisors or agents on the road. They can walk into your office or branch locations, or they can even engage with you on their mobile device. And OneSpan Sign gives you the flexibility to add e-signatures to all these channels. And that's because our solution supports a broad range of signature capture and user authentication methods. And the sender and signer experience is optimized for whatever device you're using. So whether you start in one or two of these channels, you want the ability to deliver e-signatures to customers across the various channels in the organization. And along those lines, you can get started with one specific use case and then scale e-signing to another line of business or department. And this enables you to scale e-signing across your organization, both locally and abroad, while keeping your total cost of ownership down. And what's important to note here is that unlike some of our competitors that use a one-size-fits-all approach, which may not work with every organization, we help you meet your needs, not just for today, but for the future as well. Now, I always like to take the opportunity to show our audience how e-signatures can fit into a larger business process. So while sometimes people associate document signing with the act of simply signing a document, it's really important here to remember that the signing step is part of a larger process or session that requires all of the different elements that you see on this slide over here that are built into an e-signature solution like OneSpan Sign. So our experience in doing this over the last 25 years has shown us that the particular elements that you see on the slide here is what most organizations want in an e-signature solution. So I'm just going to give you a walkthrough of the process shown on this slide. So instead of printing to paper, you'll pass that document to OneSpan Sign. We handle the e-signing process, and then at the end of it, we'll give you a secure tamper-sealed e-sign PDF that you can push downstream and archive in your content management solution for long-term storage and retention. So your front and back office remain exactly the same. Now, keep in mind that our solution is completely flexible, so you can really pick and choose what you need and design your workflows around your specific needs. So let me just walk you through each step now of this workflow. So step one is access. How is the customer or employee going to access the transaction? Now, obviously, participants need to get into the e-sign process somehow, and that can happen in several ways, including through an email invitation or a link or button in the web portal. Now, think about your internet banking portal, for example, that would initiate or kick off this process. Step two is ID verification and authentication. And this will depend on if the signer is a known or unknown participant in the transaction. There is no one way to do this across your use cases. So you definitely need and want multiple options for authentication. And this includes verifying government IDs using mobile ID verification, login credentials, SMS text codes, challenge response questions, integration with ID verification systems like Equifax, or multi-factor authentication solutions like DigiPass. Step three is presenting the document to the signer for review. Step four is data capture. So chances are many of your forms have text boxes, checkboxes, radio buttons, drop-down lists, and so on. And that data needs to be inserted into the form before it can be signed. So we enable you to capture forms data at the time of signing and then make that data available to downstream systems. Step five is signing the document. And this is a step that most people associate with e-signature solutions. And there are several options that we offer, such as click to sign, handwritten signature, and even an accept only feature. With OneSpan Sign, you can select the capture method that is most appropriate for each specific user, role, or channel. And if you want to add a second level of authentication, you can require signers to re-authenticate themselves at the point of signing. So for example, OneSpan Sign supports using local signing certificates stored on smart cards and tokens, derived credentials, third-party authenticators such as DigiPass, as well as biometrics to validate the identity of the signer before the signing process can be completed. Step six is document insertion. And this is one of those steps that may or may not apply to your particular use case, but just to give you an example here, say you have a wealth management advisor in the field meeting with a new client, that rep may want to upload some additional proof of the client's ID. So they could take a photo of the client's driver's license, for example, and just simply upload that to the e-signature workflow. And the last step is document delivery. So the documents are delivered to your back-end system, and your customer receives an email with the e-sign document as an attachment or with a link to where they can securely download the document. So I just want to mention that as you move to a fully digital process with e-signatures, What's important to look out for in a solution is that it's flexible across this workflow, from the point of authenticating the signer into the transaction to how data is captured on your forms to delivering the final e-signed document to your signers at the end of the process. Every use case is different, so it's important that you have the flexibility to pick and choose what you need for your particular business process. Okay, so I did want to take a moment to highlight a great case study where US Bank, a long-standing customer of ours, was spending a lot of their time creating and managing signatures for their account opening processes. So their bankers and tellers would spend a significant amount of time retrieving signature cards from storage and photocopying and faxing them to other branches. In addition, because the process was completely paper-based, it introduced errors, and bankers would often have to complete the account opening process in multiple sessions with the customer. So not only is this, a frustrating experience for the bankers and tellers, this is also ultimately frustrating for the customer. So with electronic signatures, the bank's account opening platform was integrated with OneSpan Sign, and this enabled the system to hand over forms to OneSpan Sign for signing. And then from there, OneSpan Sign takes over and then executes the signing process through the tablet. And in the final step, the completed forms are returned to the bank's back-end system for downstream processing and archiving. So this solution was deployed across over 3,000 branches in a 2-week time frame and had over 90% adoption rate, which was pretty incredible for US Bank. All right, so at this time, I'm going to pass it off to you, Pat, to discuss a little bit more about how folks can initiate an e-signature transaction using OneSpan Sign. So I'll hand it off to you.
Perfect, thank you. So a lot of people ask the question, what does it take to get started with using e-signatures? Is this a complicated effort? Am I going to need to get my IT department involved? So if we look at the graph here, you can really start with, from a lower adoption point of view and do things manually today, basically within a matter of hours. The service is available online. So once you subscribe to the service, you can start manually uploading and creating documents or creating transactions. And all this entails is, logging into the portal, uploading documents, providing signer information, first name, last name, email address. And once the document is uploaded, you can drag and drop the signature fields and send that out for signature. Of course, being such a manual process, you don't get a lot of adoption. It's a slow, cumbersome process. So there are ways to make that easier. And one of them is layouts. Since a lot of time is spent, making the document look good, making sure the signature cues are in the right spot. Once you do this the first time, you can save that layout. So the next time you use a similar document, you can apply that layout and all of the signature cues and any data capture fields will automatically drop into where they should be. And that again can be done through a web UI, so it's something that a non-technical person can do. Now the next step is templates. So in addition to the document itself, you might also want to identify the people involved. Who needs to sign this? If this is an HR document, I want to send this out to the hiring manager for him to sign an offer letter, then to the new hire for signature. And we don't want to, of course, we don't want to exclude the HR manager in the background. So after the first 2 people sign, we want to copy them. So within a template, you can extend that and include the workflow. Who are the people involved, and save that template so that you are guaranteed not to forget anybody in the process. Now, if you have access to the document ahead of time, whether it's a Word or PDF document, you can actually modify the Word document or the PDF to include what we call text tags. And that is something that once you do that, you use this document when you start constructing like an offer letter. And I'm going to use that offer letter as my example in the demonstration today as well, or a non-disclosure agreement, something that's more generic. But once you add a text tag to a document and it's uploaded, the software, the platform can automatically identify where those signature fields need to go. So you don't even have to apply a layout. It can be done automatically. And of course, as the adoption gets higher and higher, you might also want to include integration to the systems that are producing these documents. So that could be as simple as clicking a button from a sender's perspective and having all of the information transferred over to the service. All of the information about the signers, all of the documents to be signed can be passed through an API by a single click of a button. So of course, that's going to eliminate all of the possible errors of miskeying an email address or missing a signature field as far as the drag and drop technology goes. So that is the way that you can really increase adoption and really get a lot more volume out of that. And of course, saving some money behind the scenes as well. So that being said, why don't we go ahead and go into a live demonstration today? So we're going to take a second here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so you will hopefully see a little flickering. And I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop, and we'll talk a little bit about this process that I have going on today. So first thing I need to do is I need to go into the web here, and I'm having a technical challenge here. Here we are. With the ribbon bar was up in the way, so I couldn't maximize my screen. So I think everything is set here. So we're going to start with the signer's perspective. I've already created a transaction, and it's a non-disclosure agreement. Again, it's something that's pretty generic. It's not something that's exclusive to financial services or insurance. So the invitation today is going out to somebody that is remote. So let's talk a little bit about the best practices. So when you're sending out an email, I'm going to show you a really bad example here. This one is coming from a company that's, it's eSign Live. This is an e-signature vendor. So there is a chance that this is going to end up in a spam folder. Anytime it comes from a third party, there's a risk of things going into spam. So one of the things that you want to think about is, can I utilize my own domain when sending these email messages out? That way, if you're doing correspondence and doing emails with your customers today, it has a better chance of hitting their inbox. And the second concern, of course, is when the customer gets this, are they going to know what this is about? Coming from your company, of course, they're going to say, oh yeah, this is the non-disclosure agreement. I was expecting this. So they have a more likelihood of opening the transaction and signing it and continuing this electronically if it comes from your company. So of course, OneSpan does offer that type of integration. It can come from your domain. And then opening the email, it's also important to maintain the branding. We refer to this as white labeling, is to remove all references to the third-party provider, in this case, OneSpan. So this message is 100% your message. Everything that you're reading inside this email can be customized. You can include graphics like your own images or links to your system. But most importantly, there should be a very basic message to John Doe saying, John, you have a document that requires your signature for this transaction. Click this button to go and sign it. Now, another good question is, what happens if I'm in person? If I'm sitting across the desk, this is not a step that you're going to see. So a lot of customers, when they have in-branch signing, they'll say, well, at this point, I'm going to open up a transaction on a mobile device, like an iPad, and I'm going to hand it across to the customer for them to sign. Or another example would be, not all businesses have secure wireless, and they, of course, they're not going to turn their monitor around and give the person control of their PC, because that's just not a good practice. So another option is to have a hardwired terminal or a PC that you can walk them over. It's referred to as a closing booth. So you can say, oh, why don't you follow me over to the closing booth? We'll have you review and sign the documents. So that dedicated PC would have a link very similar to this that would use to initiate the transaction in an in-person signing. But this one being remote, we want to talk a little bit about authentication. So when the e-sign law was signed back in the year 2000, it did not specify how you had to authenticate a person. It just said you had to. So email can be considered as a form of authentication. So the fact that John Doe was able to log into this email or this Gmail account and get this link, he could be authenticated. But now if this is a shared laptop, if John is at home and his wife has access to the PC, or his teenage children might have access to it, how do we know that it's actually John? So you can put a second layer of authentication in here. And I did utilize one today. So when I click that link, the moment I click the button, I've received a PIN. It's a one-time passcode that was sent to my mobile phone. So I'm going to open this up on my phone, which is the reason I'm delaying here, and get that PIN. And this is considered a two-factor authentication, because not only did I need to have that email, but I also had to have a hardware device. In this case, it's my mobile phone. I had to get that PIN off of that thing. So now there were other options available too, and Dilani showed some of those in her workflow slide previously. Things like using a certificate or even biometrics. It all depends on how fancy you want to get. Now the warning here is you don't want to make it too complicated and reduce the adoption by your customers. So typically the SMS passcode is something that's pretty simple. You do not need to know a lot about your customer other than their mobile phone number. We could, of course, if this is an existing customer, do something like put in a challenge question. So if we have an existing customer, we have information like mother's maiden name, social, so we could ask for the last four digits of their social security number. Those are options too here for authentication. So once this is done, I'm going to go through and we'll pick up the pace a little bit here when we get to the actual signing. But we will talk a little bit again about white labeling. So I've got a logo in the upper left. We could also include a customer service number for your company in the upper right, because if a customer has a question about this, it's not typically about the process of signing, it's about the content of the document. So they should be calling you and asking you questions. So you're not going to see references to our system. In fact, a lot of our customers that are at the enterprise level will look at this and saying, I do not like that there's a URL that is going to a third party, because that's going to cause some concerns with our customers. So the answer to that is we can run this within an iframe. So what an iframe is for the non-technical folks in the audience is this can be your web page. So this would be a link to your company, and we would run as a window within your web page. So that would allow you to brand all four borders, so you can have a colored background as well. So back to the signing ceremony. So looking at this, this is an e-sign consent form. Again, part of e-sign law says when you're going business to consumer, you have to get somebody's consent to sign electronically. When you're going business to business, it's not always required, and I'm not an attorney, so I would say contact your legal department and find out if this is a requirement. If it is, we can put a standard document like this in place for you, or you can provide your own that's going to be used in your account. But the customer would need to look at this and scroll through the document and hit accept at the bottom. And we put that accept button down at the bottom for that very good reason is, people don't typically read terms and conditions or documents like this. But the fact that you presented the entire document to them before they could accept it is something that we feel is very important. We also have an opt-out button, which again, part of e-sign law is if I want to go to paper, you have to give them the option to go back to paper. And you can provide a couple predefined reasons or just allow them to type in the reason for that. In fact, you can even put in your own warning saying, hey, in doing this, you're going to delay the process by 5 to 10 business days. Do you want to really opt out of this process? I will not do that, though. We will hit the accept button and we'll continue. And hitting the accept button is the only way for me to get to the next document. So as I do that, I want to point out, too, that I am doing this 100% with my web browser. So I went from the email link and I opened up a new tab in my web browser. I do not have to download any supporting software. And that's something that you should think about as well for adoption. You don't want to have the process stop where I have to download Reader or anything like that. So the documents that we're viewing are being presented as an image within a web page. So it's 100% zero client. There's nothing I have to install, and it's very, very secure. I cannot change a picture of the document unless I put data capture fields on the screen, and that's something you would identify ahead of time. So looking at this document, again, we don't expect that your customers are going to have to go through a signing process, or a training process, I should say, to sign a document. It should be very obvious what they need to do. So as I scroll down, I can see there's a yellow Q. It says there's a signature box on that line, and there are some additional fields too that are grayed out. And if I hover on that, it's going to tell me that these are going to automatically be populated with some basic information like the signer's name, their title, and also their company name. But you don't have to type that in. That is going to be applied once I click the signature box. So how do we know that they intend to sign the document? It's very obvious to me without I have to click to sign. You'll see in the background it's changed to green and it says accepted. If I had to sign in multiple locations, I would scroll through the document. I would continue to look for those yellow Qs. And when I hit the very last one, this confirm box is going to pop up. So again, to capture their intent, I want that signer to know that, hey, you've signed this document. Are you ready to hand it back across the desk? And that's what the confirm button is going to do. So when I click OK, if there was a third document, it would appear in order. You can define what order that is. Or if they're finished, you can pop up a thank you note. This, by the way, is an optional screen that says, congratulations, signing is now completed. Very important part of the process that the signers realize that they're finished. So this can be 100% modified as well. The congratulations in the top, the logo, the instructions, even where you go when you hit the exit button can be tailored to your needs. So we came in from an email, we went to a website to sign, and when I hit exit, we can route them back to another one of your web pages for a customer portal or your web page, your standard customer-facing web page, whatever that is. So that is all there is to it from the customer's perspective. So let me close this down. I'll go back to the email and we'll delete this, kind of clean things up. And I'm going to show you what it would look like for your employees. So when I go to the portal, again, this is a web portal that is available out of the box. And there's very, very little customization that I've done to this. The only thing I did was put a company logo up in the upper left. So this is not a customer-facing screen. This is meant for your employees so that they can manage the transactions that they've sent out. So looking at this, I'm logged in as a manager. That means that I have access to summary information about all of my senders. So the left side of the screen is showing me a consolidation of everybody sending transactions, and it's showing me where all of the work is currently sitting. On the right-hand side, it's showing me what a normal sender would see. So if I was not a manager, I wouldn't see the account summary. This My Transaction graph would span the entire left to right of the screen. But it's showing me, how many things require my signature, if there are things expiring soon. And it's not just a graphic, it's something that I can click on and start doing my work. So as I look at some of the other aspects of this page, I can see the most recent stuff down here at the bottom. I can see there's 2 things that are in progress. The most current action is at the top. So this is a non-disclosure for Acme Corp that John Doe has already signed. We've got another one that's out there for Jim Smith at Dunder Mifflin. He's going to have to sign that as well. So when I go in and start doing my work, I would like to use this instead of waiting for the emails to come in. I'm going to say, well, let's have our employees go out there and click on this link to make it a lot easier. And by the way, if you notice, there are 3 transactions here. This is a good case of what this means as far as the last 30 days. So when I look at it, there's only 2 within the last 30 days. This is a really old transaction that is prior to that. But again, I can use this for signing transactions. So when I look at this, I can see, oh yeah, here's the Acme Corp non-disclosure agreement. If I click on that, it's going to take me right into the signing process. So it knows that I am logged in as the other signer. And as I scroll to the bottom, I can see all of the information. I can see that John Doe signed it, and I can see all of his information. Now it's time for me to do the same. So Dilani was talking about some of the methods that we have. This was a simple click to sign. And we put a stamp on here saying it was e-signed by John Doe. We can also incorporate the date and time within that little block as well, and also put a watermark on top of it. We could have asked for a handwritten signature. So when I click to sign, I could have popped up a little window, just like you see in a retail store. Please write your name using a mouse or your finger or stylus on a touchscreen device. So that is an option too. And just so you know that there is no difference in legal weight between the two. So a single click to sign is just as legal as me clicking on a box, writing my name, and clicking OK. I highly encourage the click to sign just because it's a single click, very simple to do. I don't have to click, write my name, and then click OK again. So what I'm going to do too is, since I have an account, I am the sender, I can click to sign, but I can apply my hand-scripted signature to the background. So that is saved as part of my profile. So that makes it look very personal. It looks like I've signed the document, but again, it's not something I had to take the time to go out there and write every single time I sign a document. Now, the last thing I need to do, of course, is click confirm. Again, this is me handing the document across the desk, and that is all I need to do. Now, it's going to tell me that, oh, you've got other transactions. So this, again, is a very convenient way for me to continue to cycle through. So I've signed the Acme Corp, and now it's telling me that Dunder Mifflin's also available, so I could very easily go through one after another and continue to sign. I'm just going to simply close that down. I'm still within the Acme Corp transaction, and we're going to spend a few minutes and talk about the audit trail and show you what the signed document looks like. So one way I can get to this document is a link right here. Now, if I've already left the transaction, I went back to the dashboard, I can still get into it. So when I do that, I can see now it is completed. And by the way, if I go back to John Doe's email, we did send him another email inviting him to come in and download that document securely. That is our preferred method. We typically do not like to send the document as a link or as an attachment, just because most times there is personal information or confidential stuff inside of that document, and email is not secure. If it was an attachment, that document would live on every email server that that it bounced off of. So again, we prefer to send them a link so they can securely download it. But me as an employee of the company, I can click on that, and I can open up the transaction, and I can do certain things. I can see that both documents were signed, and I have another option here to download that. So when I go back and think about the slide that I was talking about earlier about how can I initiate an e-signature transaction, one thing you have to think about is, how do I get the documents at the end? Do I want to have somebody go out here and manually download each and every one of these? And as adoption starts to increase, you have more and more of these, you can automate that process. Whether it's real time or in batch in the evening, you can go out there and use the APIs that are available as part of the service and grab those documents and store them locally. It's highly encouraged that we do that. That way you're going to have the documents stored. You can index them. You can decide who has access to view and see those documents within your content management system. Now, a good question is, am I going to lose anything by downloading these documents? So I'm going to go ahead and save this file just to show you what it looks like. And in doing that, you'll see I've got a zip file because there were multiple documents. We try to compress everything. It was a combination of the mutual non-disclosure and that e-signed consent form. So if I open up this mutual non-disclosure agreement completely outside of the service, it is a standalone PDF. And when I open that, I know it was very, very quick, but there's a little progress bar. Actually, the software went through, or I should say, PDF reader went through and looked at this document saying, has this document been tampered with since it was digitally signed? A digital signature was applied to this document. And I can see in the upper left-hand side, there's a green check mark. So that indicates this document is still secure, has not been tampered with. Now, this is something that is really important as well. Is you can validate this document without having to connect back to the OneSpan service. And the reason that is important is, we like to think we have a great solution, a great service, but there might come a time where you decide to discontinue that service. You're not dependent upon us to validate a document. You can look at that simply by opening it. So other companies might require you to log into their system, provide a transaction number just to validate that the document is secure. So you're not going to lose any of this by downloading it and storing it locally. Now, if I read the entire text at the top, it's telling me that it's signed, all signatures are valid, and the document was updated after signing. That might sound concerning, so I can open up the signature panel to view the change history, and there's a link right in that line. I like to point this out because this is something that we do a little bit different as well. So I can see the revisions out here. There's revision 1 and revision 2. And this again travels with the document. So if I click on revision 1, it highlights what that revision was. We applied a digital signature, which is different than electronic signature. A digital signature is a way to protect a document. It makes sure that nobody modifies that. So we applied this digital signature when John signed it. And the second revision, of course, is when I signed it. The thing that we do different is we apply that digital signature after every signature field is clicked on. And a lot of the other companies that provide e-signatures, they only seal the document at the end. They apply one digital signature. Now, why do I feel that's important? Is I can click on each one of these and I can see some information about that signature. So if I look at the properties for when John Doe signed it, I can see, well, here's the email address that we sent it to. Well, here's the IP address that John Doe used. So I could actually use that to triangulate and figure out where he was when he signed. And of course, the date and time is there. So I could compare that and say, well, who signed first? If there was 5 different signature blocks on here, what was the order of signing? Of course, the revision order is also going to tell me that, but I could look at the date and time saying, well, yeah, you signed that at 1:34 in the afternoon on the 10th of April. Very quickly, very easy to do. So that, of course, just by applying the digital signatures, it does provide this tamper evident component. It does know if the document's changed, but also having that embedded audit trail we feel is very important as well. And this is just one piece of audit trail that we provide. There is a second document. So I'm going to go back into the web portal, and I'm going to open up what we call the evidence summary report. Now, this is a document. I'm going to open this one up in place. This is not something that you have to share with the customer unless, of course, there is a dispute. So if there's a dispute, a lot of times the customer will come back with an argument. They're going to challenge you. You can say, well, hey, I've got this document that was signed. I've also got this document that shows you the steps that went through to sign that document. So here's the mutual non-disclosure agreement. It shows you information about, this transaction. When was it created and completed? Who are the people involved? Who was the sender and who was the signer? And as I scroll to the bottom, now I'm going to see a step-by-step audit of what happened. So I can see at a very exact date and time, when did we send that SMS text message to John Doe and what phone number did we send it to? So when he received that, how long did it take him? Did he have his mobile phone sitting next to him? Well, it was within a minute and 12 seconds. So it was pretty close. He had a cell phone nearby. So then he created a session, and I can go through step by step, but I think you guys get the idea. He viewed a document, he accepted it. Well, if he's arguing that he never gave his consent to sign, let's take a look at that. He viewed the document at 18:30 Greenwich Mean Time, and then within 2 minutes later, he accepted it. Is that enough time to read a page and a half of the document? Now, if it was 15 seconds, I would say definitely no, but there's a possibility he might have started reading it. But that is one way that you could handle that dispute, is saying, well, you spent 15 seconds on that document. There's no way you could have read it. Now, you can also see, of course, when people sign documents, you can see when he signed, when he confirmed. And if there were data capture fields on there, you could see that somebody typed into a field, and you'd see in the right-hand column what was the data that he typed into that field. So this is really nice. It's a living, breathing document. It's not just what did John do, but also what did the sender do. So I also came in, I viewed the document, I signed it. I also downloaded it. So this is a living, breathing document. So if John Doe came in a month after he signed this and he downloaded that, and I went and looked at the evidence summary, it would reflect that. I could see that John came in 30 days later and got his copy of the document. So again, this document, it is another PDF that can be downloaded, it can be stored, it can be indexed, and we highly recommend that you store that in the same location as the signed documents themselves. That way they're easy to get to. Things can be purged from this system, whether you want to delete them manually, or again, once you've downloaded them through an API, you could also do that in batch, saying, I'm going to go ahead and clean the system up once I have a copy of that. I want to make sure that I clean up the system and I don't leave things sitting out in some other system. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the presentation, and I think we do have a couple more slides. I'm going to hand the controls back to Dilani.
Yeah, we do. We just have a couple of more topics to cover. Let me just go ahead and share my screen.
As she's doing that, you guys don't
Perfect.
be afraid to type in some of your questions out there too. We will have a little time for Q&A at the end.
Yeah, so thanks for that demo, Pat. It was very thorough. And in addition to document security, which Pat just went over, I also want to talk about another key differentiator around the comprehensive audit trails provided by OneSpan Sign. So analysts, lawyers, and customers have recognized OneSpan Sign as having the strongest audit trails in the industry. And if you've ever participated in an audit process, you know that having complete audit trails helps to ensure you can easily demonstrate compliance to both internal and external auditors. But this can be a huge challenge in the paper world, and that's why there's such an advantage with digital processes, which allows you to capture in much greater detail than what's available on paper, including information on how and when the transaction took place. The signed document with its standard audit trail gives you reliable information on what you signed, but it doesn't really tell you how you signed it. And for that, we recommend leveraging a visual audit trail. Now, think of the visual audit trail as a visual recording of exactly how the process took place from start to finish, a sort of a black box recorder that captures and replays all the web pages and documents, as well as every action taken and how long the signer spent on each page and document. This makes it possible to completely recreate a signing event even years after the fact, which in the end can really help to streamline the audit process. It can also be used in the event of a consumer dispute if a customer ever comes back and, for example, says that they never saw a document or page. OneSpan Sign is the only solution in the market to capture a visual audit trail. It is patented and comes standard with OneSpan Sign at no additional cost. Think of it as a free insurance policy that can come in handy for compliance and legal purposes. So now, before we conclude the presentation, let's talk a little bit about how you can get started with OneSpan Sign e-signatures. So in working with many organizations like yours, we recognize that there are 4 critical requirements for a successful e-signature implementation. First and foremost, it has to be easy for everyone to use. Think of your signers, senders, and even the developers. That's because signing is such a universal concept in business that no matter your age or position in the company, and whether you're on the front line or a C-level executive or a customer, it's got to be really easy to use. Second, the solution has to have the flexibility to automate any use case across your different lines of business, channels, and geographies. Third, the solution has to capture as much information as possible as part of the audit trail so that you can reliably and easily prove what happened during the signing process in the event you're faced with a compliance audit or legal dispute. And lastly, it has to enable you to easily scale e-signatures across your enterprise, whether that's locally or abroad in your particular line of business or another line of business in the organization. Ultimately, what this does is help you reduce your time to market and lowers your total cost of ownership. Now, with respect to deployment options, You can code once and deploy anywhere, whether that's in a public cloud, private cloud, or even on premises. And OneSpan Sign offers a common platform and integration framework so that you can implement e-signatures as a shared service across your organization. You can also integrate multiple applications using a common e-signature enterprise hub across your organization. And because OneSpan Sign is built on a single platform, we enable you to use the same code across your different use cases, lines of business, channels, and geographies. So you can start developing in the cloud, for example, and then deploy anywhere you want when you're ready. So whether that's on any one of our growing global cloud locations or completely on premises behind your organization's firewall. So whatever option you choose, with OneSpan, we never really compromise security or performance and have numerous built-in capabilities to provision the right level of computing resources to maximize system performance. So as you were listening in on today's presentation, you may already have a specific use case in mind for getting started with e-signatures, but it's important to keep in mind that e-signing is ubiquitous. It's everywhere in your organization. And what we've seen in working with many companies like yours is once they see the value of e-signatures in one area of their business, they then want to extend the value to other lines of business and departments. So I really like to show this graph because it illustrates different use cases for e-signatures in an organization like yours. So where you see business to employee or internal signing workflows, business to business, and business to consumer transactions. So as you move from B to E to B to C, so left to right on this graph, transaction volumes inherently increase. So think about an account opening application or a lending process. For example, that typically has much higher volumes than an internal application where e-signatures are required, such as HR onboarding. So when you look at your organization, you can use electronic signatures across all of these areas. The last thing you want is to have a point solution for each use case or area of your business. So the key takeaway here is to start thinking about the big picture of e-signatures inside your organization and to make sure the e-signature solution you choose is able to scale across the organization no matter the use case. So here's a common question that we get. How do you get started with e-signatures? So there are a number of ways in which your organization can consume e-signatures, and this really largely depends on your use case, whether that's a straightforward contracting use case or an integrated process where your website or service is generating the document. So this slide highlights what I like to call the 3 flavors of OneSpan Sign to satisfy the various use cases in the market. So the first is our professional plan, which is a standalone web and mobile app that largely satisfy the most common internal signing workflows and e-contracting use cases in the market. So for example, think of getting your contracts and agreements signed electronically. This is a great place to dip your toes in the water because there's absolutely no development required. You can simply upload your document, select your signers, and begin e-signing in minutes. Next, we offer an enterprise plan, and this solution gives you the ability to add e-signing capabilities into your own application, whether that's through your website, your mobile app, or any core system. We have an open industry standard REST API, as well as fully supported SDKs for Java, .NET, Apex, iOS, and Android to help you embed e-signing capabilities in any one of your applications. And lastly, we also offer a number of pre-built connectors for third-party applications like Salesforce, SharePoint, Box, Dynamics CRM, and Office 365. And with these connectors, we've done all the integration work for you, so no coding or IT resources are needed to get started with e-signatures inside these business applications that you know and that you use every day. So the beauty of this is that no matter which way you choose to consume OneSpan Sign, whether you're looking for an out-of-the-box solution or to fully customize a solution for your needs, you gain access to over 25 years of e-signature expertise and innovation for our people and directly built into our solution. So if you're interested in giving our solution a try, I encourage you to sign up for a free trial on our website. Or if you're a developer, we have a free developer community that gives you access to a number of developers' tools and forums to help you get started. And of course, you can download our best practices for building your e-signature workflow white paper that the content of this webcast is largely based on. So I know we're reaching the top of the hour. So, and I know everyone had a lot of information to digest today. So I just want to Before we move on to the Q&A portion of this presentation, I just want to quickly give you a recap of the top takeaways from this presentation. So e-signatures are a critical aspect of any digitization initiative. It's a proven solution. We've been doing it for 25 years. You can start small, but think big. It's a solution that can conform to your requirements and not the other way around. To recap, you want to select a solution that is tried and tested and used by some of the world's most trusted and security-conscious organizations. OneSpan Sign has been in the e-signature world for over 25 years, and we have a proven track record when dealing specifically with organizations in the regulated space. Select a flexible and scalable enterprise-grade platform that'll grow with your organization's needs. You really don't want to get stuck with a point solution that will end up costing you your organization when it comes time to extend e-signatures across multiple lines of business, departments, and teams. And no matter which plan you choose, you want the power to fully white label the e-sign process, like Patrick went over in his demo. Equally important, your e-signature solution should be backed by a team of people with deep domain expertise in e-signatures in your industry, in regulated transactions and enterprise deployment. And above and beyond technology, you want a team that'll help you succeed. So this includes solution architects, technical support, product experts, and a growing online community who can share best practices with you to ensure that your e-signature project is a great success. So you want your provider to be fanatical about customer service, and will do whatever it takes to make sure you hit the highest adoption rates possible. So with that, Bill, I'll hand it back to you for the Q&A portion of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. This has been very, very informative. We've got a lot of questions, and what I'm hoping is that the ones that maybe we can't get answered here on the webinar today, we can get those answers to the folks that are asking the questions through the chat and through the question function. But Richard had a couple of them. First off, is this FedRAMP certified? And the other piece was question is, can you have multiple brands for your envelopes? For example, there are multiple state agencies.
So I'll take that first part of the question. Yes, we are FedRAMP authorized. Patrick, I don't know if you want to get the second half of that question.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Even to add on to that, the FedRAMP is actually a certified infrastructure, so it's not just the hardware; it's also the software has been certified by the federal government. So we do have people running in those instances. And the second half is we are introducing a feature that is called sub-accounts, so that if you wanted to have different branding, such as logos and customized email per line of business. That is a feature that's coming out today. We do handle it today, but the way we do that is to create multiple sender accounts. So it can be done. It's just that the administration is going to be made a little bit easier with the introduction of sub-accounts, which should be coming out soon.
Okay, great. And Don's got a question here. Can you implement multiple level approvals? For example, the document first goes to 3 managers to sign. Once they sign, then it goes to the CEO for final approval.
Yeah, I'll handle that one as well. Within the workflow, so when I started talking about the transaction, I was defining the template. The template controls the workflow. So when you create a transaction, you can identify the people that have to participate. So an HR hiring manager might be first, and then the new hire, and then somebody in HR. You can define the order in which those people are going to be invited. So some of those people might be simple approvers. Some of them might have to sign. So it's, you can define the order, and, and it would enforce that they would not invite a person to come in and sign until it was their appropriate time in the process.
Okay, great. Another one is, in this digital age, why is document as a fixed container required, which is still perpetuating a paper-based process in an electronic format?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I fully understand, but I think that is the reason that we do that is, people are used to the paper process today. They're used to the concept of documents being signed. So there's a PDF or a Word or a PDF or a Microsoft Word document. We take that electronically as opposed to on paper and have that signed. I mean, I'm not sure what the alternative to that would be. So I'm not sure, Dilani, if you had a different spin on what that question was.
No, I think you said that correctly, Pat. I would have answered the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, we've got a number of other questions, but we're coming to the top of the hour here, so I think we're going to have to wrap it up. And I'm hoping, like I said earlier, that we can get the questions to the presenters and we can get some answers from them. And get those answers back out to the attendees. The one question I do have is, somebody asked, is the slide deck going to be available?
Yes, I believe all the attendees during today's webcast will receive an email, maybe in a couple of days, with a link to the PowerPoint slides. So yes.
Okay, great. Well, I think with that, being at the top of the hour, we want to thank you guys for a great presentation. I think this met everybody's expectations, and that should do it for today.
Wonderful. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a good afternoon.